Welcome to the Sharkpreneur podcast with Kevin Harrington and Seth Greene. Kevin Harrington is the inventor of the infomercial, one of the original sharks from the hit TV show Shark Tank, and has generated over $5 billion in TV and digital direct response sales. Seth Greene is the world's first trusted authority on cutting-edge direct response marketing, a best-selling author, and the only 3-time Marketer of the Year nominee. On the podcast, Kevin and Seth interview Sharkpreneurs who share straight talk on what it takes to explode your business.
49 faces looked to him in triumph. Over the last 12 months, they had each taken turns and promoted his business for a week at a time, driving over $987,342 in revenue. What if you had a network of 50 centers of influence who promoted your business every week for a year? Grab your copy of the #1 Amazon best-selling book, The Ultimate Guide to Growing Your Business with a Podcast, at 33% off the Amazon price by going to ultimatepodcastbook.com. Again, that website for 33% off the Amazon price is ultimatepodcastbook.com. Welcome to the podcast. This is your host, Seth Greene. Today, I've got the good fortune to be interviewing Paul Celuch and John Decker from College Assistance Plus. Paul, John, thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you, Seth.
Appreciate it, Seth.
Happy to have you guys here. Let's go back in time. We'll start with John, and then we'll go to Paul. John, how did you get started in the business?
Well, it was about 16 years ago, and I had sent my own kids to Syracuse University, and because my great-great-grandfather was one of the founders of Syracuse, I wrote a really interesting letter about keeping the legacy going, and somehow that was able to create a pretty good scholarship for all of my 3 kids. So it was a very effective PowerPoint. And then I met Paul. I was starting a nonprofit to help students transition from high school to college. I met Paul, loved what he's doing, and I've been with him ever since.
Awesome. Paul, how did you get started in the business?
Just quickly, I was a vice president for IBM, and my oldest son was going to Messiah College in Pennsylvania, and I gave him some money. They asked me to be on the board. And my first board meeting, Seth, was a revelation to me. I realized these were all educators, not bad people, or government employees, and they knew nothing about how the finances of college worked. And the president, who's a good friend of mine, said to me, Paul, this is your first meeting. Our only agenda item tonight, besides drinking a little bit of wine, was to approve a budget for a $1 million waveless swimming pool. And I'm a swimmer, but I didn't know what that meant. And I said, President Phipps, why are we this is a 3,000 person college. She said, well, you don't understand. We have to keep up with Lehigh, Bucknell, Gettysburg. They all have one, so we need one. And the light went off for me as a business person. I said, you know what? They don't know how hard it is for people to pay for college. And that was back when there was $200 billion in student loans. Today there's $1 trillion. So the numbers are staggering.
And then that inspired, tell me how that brought about College Assistance.
Well, what I did, I've had quite a few jobs, and I said, I think I can help families with this. They are very uninformed about how this all happens. And even though some of my best friends are high school guidance counselors, they don't care how much you pay for college. And there's a lot of pressure, as you well know, Seth, on students that are talking to their contemporaries about where you're going to school, and nobody factors in the expense. So as you know, I recently wrote a book, which is Win College, and it's all about how to minimize college loans while creating a successful career for your student.
Awesome. And John, talk a little bit about what College Assistance Plus does.
Yeah, well, first place to start is with figuring out the right career and major, because so many students, they'll either go to college, change major 3 or 4 times, spend 6 years in college doing so, and end up with something that they don't like doing. So it's so important to help them dial into who they really are and what are the options. Often they only know what they see on television from their friends. So we help them discover who they are and then open up the aperture on what are the different things they could possibly do with their life. That gets them excited about college. Then there's a whole process of preparing them, helping the parents understand the financial profile and how to do it. I would say one of the things that sets us nationally apart is we've developed a way to understand the business of college, how colleges really operate, and using that to effectively appeal or negotiate better deals in college. You can do that at the end, but if you prepare a year and a half or so in advance, that even works better.
So what does that mean? Tell us a little bit about, I mean, obviously we don't want to give away all the secret sauce. We want them to read the book and talk to you, but tell us a little bit about what you mean by the business of college and how it works.
Well, John, let me respond to that. So, Seth, we have a database which we created over the last 20 plus years of 3,600 colleges, and we can tell you school X that competes with school Y, if you will. In fact, an example of that in our area of the country, Rochester Institute of Technology is a great school. But when I started this business, they were 26 grand a year. Now they're 65,000. What we use as a competitive school for them is a school you've never heard of. It's called the University of Missouri Science and Technology. That's a state school in Missouri. We're not trying to send your son or daughter to Missouri. What we want is that offer from Missouri. The metaphor I always use is like buying a car. If you're going to buy a new BMW, you're not going to say to the BMW dealer, I'm looking at a Chevy or Ford. You're going to say, I'm looking at a Mercedes. So we lock up schools in competitive categories, as I said, and we're very, very successful in using that to appeal for more money. But it's just not. John mentioned. I think John may have mentioned this. In this last student graduation year, the average 4-year graduate took 5.5 years. And the driving factor behind that is he or she does not know what they want to do. So they use that college experience to discover that. So we try to preempt that and get out in front of that with the student. Very, very effective.
So colleges, as they're building their in the college experience, it actually is made up of the composite of the types of students that are there. So they're looking for certain students that would blend the and expand the portfolio of the experience on the college campus. So they're looking for students that have different categories to exemplify that. And so if you really highlight where, if you know what that is in a particular college, we do a lot of research to find out where are they lacking? Are they lacking students? Are they lacking students in a certain area? And then we can highlight how this student will fill that gap. They're more valuable, and the colleges actually run an algorithm that will calculate to what degree and propensity you might be a lifetime donor to the college. And so we help them with the interviewing process to interview with a department head who will then put pressure on the financial aid to say, I want this student in my classes. And that whole process, it's like engaging a coach and having them go to bat for you. It's the same with the head of an academic department.
And just to add to John's point, Seth, when we went to school, the three of us, the essay was a huge driving factor. Colleges tell us now, very candidly, they don't believe the kid writes the essay because AI or GPT chat. So we place a tremendous emphasis on the interview. We prep the student for the interview, as John said, and we think that's a real difference maker for our clients.
Now, that all makes a lot of sense. You mentioned a year to a year and a half. So what's the ideal year in high school for folks to start working with you?
Well, it could be as early as halfway through the sophomore year, the summer when they're heading in to be a junior. That's really an optimum time to start. You can start later, but that's really the best.
But I'm working with a young lady. They just engaged us. She's a sophomore, and the reason the father, who's a doctor, engaged us, she wants to play hockey in college. So I've already introduced her to some hockey coaches. So we do a lot of things that involved, as John pointed out, in the high school years that the average person doesn't think about. We think the earlier you can get out in front of the decision on the part of you and the college, the more effective you are.
That makes a lot of sense.
I guess I would say that there's two types of ways we engage. One is the full service that we're just talking about there. Another is later in the game. It could be a senior in high school or even already in college, which is simply the appealing and negotiating. So you can catch them later in the stage there.
And Seth, just let me point out to John's point. I just signed a client up. His son graduated from Penn State. He's a realtor in Manhattan. He said his son hates real estate. So he's engaged me with the son to help the son develop a real aptitude for what he wants to do. And the son's name is Aristotle. When I talked to him today, he said, I want to be an attorney, but I want to be an attorney with a purpose. I said, Aristotle, what do you mean? He said, I don't want to do divorce. I don't want to do criminal. I want to be a sports agent, which is interesting. So we're going to reach out to the Jets coach, or the Jets business manager, the Giants business manager, and I'm going to try to get him interviews with those individuals. We find that colleges, John alluded to this, are very ineffective at helping kids get jobs. They say, send them your resume or use LinkedIn or Easy Recruiter. That doesn't get a college kid a job. In fact, the average college student who graduated last year started at $42,000 a year, average. This isn't the doctors and lawyers, but they're not making any money. And we all know that with AI, there's going to be a lot less jobs. So we think that, as John pointed out, what we provide at the end is really important.
I love that you go past just simply getting them in and helping them pay for it onto the next phase. Did I understand that correctly?
Exactly. That's the home run is, are you going to get a job in a career field that you enjoy, right? How many people, I've had quite a few jobs. I was vice president for IBM. People, it's really a shame when they hate what they do. It's just for the finances, right? We're very against that.
I would hope so. So what are some of the biggest misconceptions when it comes to the college process?
I think the biggest misconception I see is that people don't realize you can negotiate for college. It's like whatever they give us, we're going to be happy with that. I just did an appeal today for a family in Canada, the Canandaigua area. They make $300,000 a year. The daughter is going to Pitzer, which is in California. It's $88,000 a year. And they offered, the only offer they gave to the client was an $85,000 a year parent loan for undergraduate studies. That's the biggest one I've ever seen in 20 years. The father almost fell over. He said, yeah, we make good money, but we need to get some help. I just negotiated for $5,000 a year, which isn't a lot, but over 4 years, that's $20,000. So they paid me $4,000 to save them 20, and they're going to get all the other ancillary issues that we talked about. So there's colleges will take whatever you let them take. And as John pointed out, if you've got the inside track on knowing what your student offers them, it's a real plus.
That makes a lot of sense. What is your passions are obvious. What do you like best about what you're doing?
John, what would you answer that,
Yeah,
please?
well, I love seeing students narrow down what they really want to do and then find an economical way to get through it. Perhaps they want to get a graduate degree. It doesn't mean they need to spend the family fortune on the undergraduate degree. It's preparing them in a way to do really well in their class. And in fact, you'd be a lot better off if you are in the top 10, 15% of the class of a mid-ranked school than being in the lower quarter of Cornell. You'll do a better job getting into grad school, and you'll be able to develop as a person rather than being struggling to just feel like you'll even make it.
Seth,
so
what I would add is this,
Yeah.
What the president's doing right now, tearing back the covers of some of these colleges. I mean, Harvard with a $50 billion endowment. I heard somebody say that's a a huge hedge fund with a college attached, and 33% of the kids going there are full paying Chinese. So a lot of the things that we knew, but we were reluctant to say because you don't want to come across as a jerk. The college, the president is really opening the kimono on some of these things, and it's really interesting. I think that the receptivity that I've experienced in the last 6 months has been greater than in the previous 20 years. People are saying, wait a minute. Oh, well, as you know, Seth, the student loans have been turned off for 9 months. Nobody's been paying student loans for 9 months. All of a sudden, every student loan borrower has got to receive an urgent matter from the IRS saying you have to start paying your student loans back. These numbers are staggering to people. I talked to a woman the other day she's 65 years old. She's a retired school teacher. She's still paying back $495 a month on her student loans.
That is absolutely
I think
incredible.
here's something also that's helpful for people to understand. So we work with a lot of financial advisors, and what really gives us some joy is helping them work well with their clients. So Paul and I are both doing this from, I started a nonprofit, and this became something to augment what we're doing with the nonprofit. Paul started with a viewpoint of trying to help people, serve their families better. And so it's good for people to understand that are watching this, that we don't directly interface with the university. Sometimes we do, but primarily we're behind the scenes helping the parents we're helping draft the letters, the appeals, and things like that. So they should understand that we're helping them succeed and do well, for now and for a lifetime.
That's a beautiful thing. For our folks watching and listening who want to learn more, where is the best place for us to send them?
So the website
Well, John, you can come on that, please.
Yeah, the website is caplus.info, caplus.info, and you'll be able to get all the information there.
caplus.info. Awesome. We will make sure everyone gets that. This has been Seth Greene with John Decker and Paul Celuch. John, Paul, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, Seth.
Thank you,
That's
everybody.
great, Seth. We appreciate it.
Thank you, everybody, for watching or listening. We will talk to you or see you next time.
Why do so many businesses struggle while others seem to explode overnight? Do you wish you had the secret to this type of exponential growth? Now, I've scaled more than 20 businesses to over $100 million, and it's not just luck. In my new book with Mark Tim, Mentor to Millions, you'll learn the repeatable framework I use in all my business ventures for massive success. Order at kevinmentor.com and get over $1,000 in bonuses. Head to kevinmentor.com.